Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description below. And last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button and leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? All right, so today's upload is a subscriber experience, and on Saturday night, we had our live stream, an amazing live stream. I want to thank everyone who was there. Once again, we have a lot of fun there, share a lot of experiences, a lot of theories, just a really good time, a great community. There is virtually no BS, no drama. It's just a good time all in all. And a subscriber who is in the comment section. He usually kind of falls back, doesn't comment too much. But last night, or Saturday night, he had been gifted a membership by Aramic. Aramic, thank you. And anybody else who donated to the channel, Delirium, Denise, and my brain just shut off. I apologize if I know there was like a couple more, a lot more than a couple, but thank you for really supporting this channel. It truly is amazing. Aramic had given about 30 memberships last night or Saturday night, and I had seen the name, and usually when people don't comment and just kind of lurk in the shadows, I will say, hey, welcome to the live, just to try to bring them into the mix. And sure enough, it worked. And this subscriber had said that they had an experience. I said, please email it to me. Someone put an email up before I did because I'm a very slow typer. And this morning I had their email and a Canadian phone number asking me to get in touch with them, that they had a rather interesting experience to share. And they immediately piqued my interest because they had talked about briefly military 2023 wildfires. So I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. And I ended up letting them know, hey, I probably am going to have to use Messenger, Facebook Messenger, to call you. That way it's pretty much free for both of us. But I'd like to talk with you if you're available. And he said, absolutely. So got on Facebook Messenger and called him up. Well, lo and behold, his name is Arthur, and he had 27 years in the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, CSOR. A couple years prior to CSOR, and he is retired after 27 years. Arthur, interestingly enough, and he said this to me during our conversation, and I found it really cool because He's like, my name means bear man. And I'm like, really? And because, like, it's just, I think my name means peaceful, like, just, but his is bear man. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I told him about a Ojibwe bear walker, very similar to the Navajo skinwalker legend and stuff like that. But we got to talking. Just a super nice guy, my age. So we had a couple of nostalgic moments and stuff, even though he lives in Canada. And he wanted to really share some information with us because he had to wait. He retired last year, right at 27 years, like bing, right when he hit. Because apparently at 25 years you can retire. But he wanted to get extra benefits or something like that, extra health benefits, because he had been injured in a couple of military skirmishes overseas. He had been involved in Afghanistan, which was, just a really cool guy. So anyway, they had been at a military base in Alberta, and it's really close to Calgary. Canadian Forces Base Schofield. Being that he is in the Canadian Special Operations division, and they really are pretty much very similar to Green Beret from what he described. They can do a lot of what like other U.S. Special Forces do, but in comparison to our Special Forces, he said it's pretty similar to Green Beret. They specialize in like special warfare, special reconnaissance, direct action, and other kinds of various like going in and training, communicating with populations and such. And Green Beret really do just that. So at this base in Calgary, or just outside of Calgary, Canadian Force Base Schofield, they specialized. They were there for some sort of training on bomb detection and other kinds of training there. And once again, that's what they specialize in, on top of direct action. Like, they will just shoot it out. This base, Schofield, also is works directly with Great Britain, and apparently SAS trains there periodically with the Canadian Special Operations Regiment and other Canadian Special Force, I guess, teams, whatever you want to call them. I'm not really familiar with Canadian military. But they pretty much work hand in hand. Once again, SAS, British Special Forces. Very similar to Green Beret, like the elite of the elite. And they were just training, going in classrooms and such, learning things. And he was really kind of milking his last couple of years because he had seen combat. He had 25 years at this point in, and he had planned on retiring when he turned 47 years old. So he's like, I'm just gonna, ride it out. Hopefully we don't get into any kind of craziness until, so I'm just going to train and learn as much as I can. Also, he was doing this because he didn't know if he was going to stay in the military. He had actually thought about staying until he was about 55, maybe 60. But he said, I didn't want to get greedy and I wanted my own time. And you know what? Can't blame him. 27 years working at the same job. So they are doing all this kind of training and learning. Apparently, from down the wire, the forest fires were blazing through the middle of Canada, like midway right through. And where the majority of these fires were in Alberta was just north of them, north of Edmonton and in that area and such. So apparently they had gotten this information that there was an area that had not been affected by the fire directly, but with the smoke and heat, there was a lot of push in wildlife. They had gotten this information saying that apparently there were what appeared to be an unknown entity or unknown coming, a large going south from the area just past Edmonton. That very dense, still very dense. And it appeared to be coming south. They have no idea what anyone is talking about. And once again, this is all just hearsay. People were talking amongst themselves like, the hell, like, we're going to go hunt bear now, and then they get a notification or call stating to go into this briefing room, and they will be briefed on what is expected of them. Now, some of the military, Canadian armed forces, were helping control these fires. They almost like our National Guard would in America. But this was just something, because you hear what it was you're hearing something third hand. The briefing room comes and they sit down. There is 15 officers that are all kind of in the know, all very trustworthy, all vetted, and not just combat ready, but men that have really dedicated their lives to the intelligence and protection of Canada. So he goes in, being that he has been in the service for 25 years at this time, and he sits down and he's kind of looking at one of his buddies going, this is kind of weird, maybe what we heard is true. Maybe there's, like rogue bear coming out. Maybe we have to, round them up or help wildlife officials and park officials. Just a lot of speculation. And the main personnel, the leader of all of the Canadian Special Operations Regiment personnel, addresses the situation. He specifically told me he did not want any ranks or any other names except his used. He said, I don't care if I catch hell for this. He said, but I don't want anyone else to. So they sit down, and I guess what was said was, we all know that there is a fire. Many of you who have trained in the Northwest Territory and up in Saskatchewan for winter warfare had and have been familiar with creatures called Sasquatch. And 2 or 3 of the guys kind of shook their head, like they were like, yeah, yep. And a few of the guys were like, what the hell are you talking about? Because it's not something readily spoken about, you know? And Arthur's kind of like, all right, this is really strange. What is exactly going on here? So after that statement, what was said was, coming south, there is what appears to be a large pack of what we know as canine, dogman, werewolf, whatever you want to call them. They appear to be traveling in a pack of about 15 to 20 coming south. And if they continue to go south, what they will do is they will run right into Calgary, they'll hit Edmonton, and then possibly go into the States. There is a few people that are going to come up from the United States that has worked with these creatures prior to. And Arthur's just like, what is going on? Like, mentally, he has... Imagine not knowing, you know? Imagine he's heard of Bigfoot. He's heard of, you know, like paranormal ghosts and shit like that. He'd actually seen a episode of, I forget what it was that he had said, but he had seen where the couple was attacked down by Roanoke in Virginia. And husband and wife, the guy had that 357, came out around his camper and saw them. They hauled ass and sat in a parking lot. But so he's kind of now like, all right, whoa, these things are real. Okay. So they all are told at this point, you will not speak of this. And when the 2 men from the States come up, we'll be back in this debriefing room and we will fill you in more. They will fill you in more on what we are going to be doing. 2 days go by and they are called back into this debriefing room. They all sit down and there are 2 American or 2 guys that are not familiar to anyone in this room talking to the head of personnel of this Canadian Special Operations. So he automatically thinks to himself, all right, this must be the guys. He, after that meeting, after the initial meeting, he had heard a few of the other guys kind of dicking off about it, kind of taking it a little lightly. He chose to go and seek out the 2 or 3 guys that had nodded their heads in response to Bigfoot in the Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan area, and he, instead of calling BS, he went and talked to those guys. They filled him in a little bit, and he had brought up the fact that, hey, from what they said, what, was told to us, I don't know if you guys had seen this show, and he said it's a perfect description of what he had said. And those guys looked right at him and was like, listen, these things are real. They are out there. What do you think is responsible for Banff? The Headless Valley, the Wahila, the legend and lore of the Wahila is more than likely a Dogman. There's been numerous Bigfoot experiences and encounters out that way as well. Whatever you do, take this seriously. These things are deadly. These things are violent. They are also not dumb. They are not just an animal. These things are very intelligent and will work together as one weapon. So you've got 15 to 20 of these things. They are not independently going to move. They are going to have some sort of plan to work and overrun. If there's 20 of us, they're going to try to figure out a way of overrunning and running right through us. They are not going to play dumb and, one by one get killed. So he sits down. They all sit down. In front of them is a sheet of paper, and he kind of glazes over it, and it is a non-disclosure. These two gentlemen from America start talking. One of them had brought up a area that I have talked about here, the Eye of Quebec, and the other gentleman had talked about borders along Michigan, Wisconsin, that area of America, Canada, Dogmen, and Bigfoot, specifically Dogmen. And that was brought up because of what they are going to be talking about now. As he and I are talking about this and he's sharing this with me, I go, did they tell you where they were from? I'm like, did they tell you where they were out of? Or did they have Southern accents? He said, no, they didn't have Southern accents, but he goes, I do believe they came out of Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Now, as we know, there's a deep underground military base right around where the CIA, pretty close to Newport News, Virginia, and there's a naval base right there, CIA training and such. And Victor flat out said, recruited from the Marines by CIA, brought me to a deep underground military base where I was trained to hunt these creatures. So we start talking quick, and he goes, I listened to probably 10 of those interviews you did with Victor, and what he said and what he talked and how he talked was very similar to what these guys were saying. Almost as if, when interviewing or talking with people, there is no room for any kind of compassion or BS. Just get to the bottom of it, get to the answers you need, and move on. And I remember Victor talking and sharing the Maine incident up in Maine. And there were a few people that were kind of chapped about how he treated those two boys, but you are in a life and death kind of thing. So they are all briefed on what to expect, exactly word for word, very similar to what the two or 3 guys had said about these things working in unison as a team. And essentially, if there is 15 to 20, there is going to be 40 of them being dropped in to the region where these things are right before they get to where they are, and they will set up a perimeter and hold that perimeter, and take as many out, and try to get them all was the get them all. Actually, try wasn't even the word. It was, set up a perimeter and just take them out. Essentially, they can't, if they turn around, that fire is going to be, miles north. But where else can they go? They're trying to go south. They can go west and east, but the fire is going to still be north. So they're kind of sitting ducks. Not really, but, so they have a disadvantage as well as these guys do. They all signed these NDAs, and the few of the guys that were not taking it seriously were seriously reprimanded. They were taken out of the room and addressed by these 2 United States alphabet agency people. They were not in military camo. They were wearing kind of khakis and polos, look like contractors. So after all of the briefing questions, and one of the questions was, are you guys coming along with us to, who's in charge? Are you guys in charge? Are we following, your command? How is this going to work? Perfect question, right? Because you essentially are in your own country, you are highly trained, and you've got 2 guys that are from a different country, telling you things that, there may be a little kind of animosity, the measuring stick time. And what was said was, no, you guys are on your own. We are here. We are actually here for this time being, and we are going back to the States. We do not, and it is per our protocol, we do not intervene in your guys' stuff. We have our own special forces kind of ABC group that deals with these things in our country. You guys at this point don't. You guys are going to have to deal with it. We are just here to give you guys a little bit of guidance and let you know what to prepare for. So they get the ins and outs of these creatures, where, how intelligent they are, where to possibly shoot and take them out. Don't shoot in the middle of the chest. Aim for, take some headshots. You guys are special forces. You guys are supposed to be elite shooters, so you should be able to hold your own against these things. 2 days go by, and they are told to be ready. Just be ready. We will let you know when you guys will be deployed to this area. Now, as this is going, as these 2 days go, these things are still traveling south. At about 4:30 in the morning, they are all rousted up and told to bring all your gear and low altitude drop-in gear as well, your low altitude parachute, whatever, because you are going to be dropping in from a fairly low altitude. You're going to be getting dropped off in an area called Goose Mountain Ecological Reserve. We'll be dropped off north of there. These things are running straight into that area. That is the most remote and densely filled area with trees and everything else for these creatures to hide in, and less population. So you guys will be jumping and setting up a perimeter and getting ready to fight some of the most intelligent creatures on this planet, apex predators. They are dropped in at about 5 a.m. They leave Shoefield and continue north. They're dropped in. Hang on, there's a fire truck coming. As they drop in, they realize, hey, now we know why we are getting dropped in at this area. It's roughly 1,200 meters in some of this area, which is about just below 4,000 feet. So you got some altitude right there, mountains, lots of woods, and they are all given information on where, real-time information via comms, where these creatures are. There are drones overhead watching these things, and a few of the guys are like, why don't we just take them out with our drones? Why don't we do that? Because there's more than one or two of these things. There's 15 to 20. They got a calculation of about 18. They ended up taking out 17 of these things at the end of it all. And they needed to do it pretty much hand to hand, but not really hand to hand, but do it this way, because if by chance, they split off, you have 10 going one way, 10 going the other, and then split off and keep splitting off until they're 4 little sets of 5. And 5 of these creatures alone are dangerous enough, So the idea is to get them when they are all as one. They drop in and figure out, they correlate where they are going to set up this perimeter. There's 45 total CSOR personnel that drop in, and it is roughly now about 6:30 a.m. in the morning on an August, just a hot, air polluted environment. You are 3,000 something, almost 4,000 feet. The breathing quality is not good. It's just hell. So they set up perimeter, and I had to hit pause for a second. I apologize. There's a lot of commotion. There must be some big kind of accident or something down the road, so there's a lot of fire trucks and ambulances gone by. They set up their perimeter, and the one big difference that cued them in on a lot was that their weapons were upgraded. Normally they would, when in Afghanistan, they would carry C7A2, which is very similar to our M4, chambered in 5.56 NATO. This time, a few guys did bring those, but the majority of them all had C-20 SASWs, which is 7.62 by 51 NATO round, almost a 308, very similar to the Springfield M1A. It does not look like the Springfield M1A, but same kind of rifle round. And so the majority of them all had this larger 7.62, very similar to an AK round, if you really put it that way. And they were carrying C9A2s, which 5.56, but lightweight, very lightweight, heavy machine gun, like pretty much like our saw. I'm sure of that, which can do some damage. So now they are all, as they are getting ready to be dropped in, amongst a few of them are talking about how this must be real serious because, we are in our homeland getting dropped off into a mountainous region with larger rounds, larger guns than normal, So these must be some pretty dangerous things. Things that you just, start at, if you're in this field for that long, you start to notice, like, hey, this is different. All right, then we got something to, we're going to be going full on with these things. And they get set, and a few of the guys are having a hard time breathing. But, they're all right. It was really just a nasty black clouds, just real. We had, I remember, and probably many of you that lived in the northern part of America, I remember smoke, and there were particles in the air from these fires. And gosh, Canadian border from me, about 200 miles north of me, and there was not a fire close to Cornwall, but it was, moving toward there. So just imagine how much and how bad it would have to be right there, So they all tough it up, and they get notification that, hey, you are going to have impact with these things real soon, like minutes. They are coming at a very high rate of speed. It appears that they are, full on in a kind of pack, a super pack, I guess 15 to 20 Dogmen. But then you realize there's 18. That's still, to me, that is a super pack. I usually think of a pack of Dogmen at 5, maybe. 5 is terrifying. 18 is holy shit. They all set up and they get ready. They prepare for this, what they are in for. Probably 30 seconds before they first see contact or make a visual with these things, they could feel these things, just like, everything got real weird. It was already weird enough. You've got this kind of low hanging cloud of smoke and particles. You have just, it's on top of knowing that you're going to do battle with something that is unlike any other enemy you've ever faced. They first sight is they are told, once you see these things, just shoot. And how they were set up was they had a line of guys and kind of like almost like a catch. Nothing on this side because you don't want to cross shoot and shoot your buddy. But if you're in a straight line and then you've got this, because they're going to run one way or another, they're going to run one way or the other. But you can't have any crossfire. So what they did was they kind of set up on the left-hand side of this mountainous area that they're at. They have the high ground. And as soon as these things come over this berm, they literally just let it out. He said that they were running quadruped. You could smell these things. He said it was a really strong, kind of musky. He said, I don't agree with the scent, people saying urine and shit and blood and this. He said, what I got, and even at the end of it all, he said the majority of it was smoke, but he said these things were musky smelling. I could get where urine would be a smell for them, but he goes, I didn't smell any kind of fecal matter or whatnot. He said musk and urine and a lot of smoke. So they come over and they're all running quadruped and they get hit. Boom. There was no warning. How you can't warn. You have a super pack of dogmen running. You just shoot and hope for the best. As the first few take rounds, they actually stood up and proceeded to run bipedal. So from quadruped to bipedal and still running straight at them. A few of them were getting hit from the side and front on. And he said that he saw maybe the first 5 drop. He said, and in my head, he's like, all right, we're pretty good. We're pretty good. And he's thinking, I hope this is the way it's going to be, because he's thinking, I just want to retire, to be honest. That's his whole time during this thing was, I just want to retire. I don't want to die by one of these things. That would be a kick in the dick if, 25 years of serving my country and putting my life on the line, becoming a special force operator, to be killed by something like this. So the first maybe 5, maybe 6 drop after standing bipedally, because they are hit quadruped, then they stand up, they're still getting hit. As the other, they're still coming at you, they're getting hit from left and straight on. What happened next was you literally saw the remainder of them, 10 to 12 of them. They instantly could figure out what was going on. He said, I never saw something so scary, he said, and look like an animal. He said, but what these things did next, he said, they continued to run at us, but he said a few of them actually picked up the body of, another dogman and picked it up and kind of ran with it. like as a shield almost. He said, and as they were doing that, they looked like they were coming straight at us. So we're opening fire on them. He said, but then just real quick, he said it was almost like they could communicate telepathically. There was half of them went right up to the side on the left side that we're getting, you're getting flanked. They're going right up towards them. The other half is coming straight at Arthur and his guys. They're just shooting, doing the best they can. These guys are now, but a few of these dogmen, like I said, have bodies in front of them. They picked up fallen dogmen. He said that we got pretty much the remainder of the ones that were in front of us. That C-20 SASW is like a marksman sniper rifle, but it's semi-automatic. It's 7.62. And it's a powerful round, especially semi-automatic. And you're a good shot. You're doing some damage. He said that they watched these things drop, and he saw one run off in the opposite direction. It ran right instead of straight or left. He said they stopped shooting because the ones that were in front of them were done, and they look over and up, and it was almost what it looked like, almost a massacre. These things threw the carcass of the Dogman at these other operators, these special operation regiment, threw them and proceeded to run almost straight through these guys. They're shooting. You've got high caliber rifle, but you've got something very intelligent that used a body shield, and now threw that body shield at you almost with precision, and then it's trying to attack you as you are shooting at it, but you are now at a disadvantage. These guys can't shoot over there because what if they start doing, hitting their own men? They were immediately rerouted to go and join, not around them, but join these other guys. So what they did was they immediately stand up and run towards the left and get behind those 15 to whatever guys, because it was smaller. You had like 45 guys, so you've got the majority of them right in front. Then you've got your kind of off group right there. So the larger group is now behind the smaller group, which is unfortunately getting their ass handed to them. They're getting shot, but they're not giving up. Out of those 15 guys in front, there was a total of 3 that were mauled and killed. Through comms, they were told to fall back, but you can't. And Arthur said it was like it was being helpless in watching your best friend fight the biggest thing on earth and you not being able to help. Because how are you going to help? You can't shoot. You're directly facing these things. And your friends are in front of you. So now you are human, essentially their buddies, guys they fought with alongside for years, trained with for years, had barbecues with for years, are essentially now a human target for this larger group of men, or a human shield for these dogmen. the remainder of them. And there's now about 8. They fall back, but fall. The main guy that is in charge immediately comes up with the idea, and he tells via comms remainder of the guys that are in the front, drop and lay down, and when you are on the ground, scream down. And what we're going to do is, when you are down and all of you are down, we're going to open fire on the rest of these things. Sure enough, it worked. They drop, and you hear down, down, down. As that last down is said, is when these guys open up on the remainder of them. Only one did get away. So as all of this is done, and it was definitely not a quick excursion. It was lasted about 35, maybe 40 minutes from the first second of these things coming up to, the end when the last one was put down. They would just be held off, He looks at them, and they are then told to put them all, kind of gather them all up first, make sure they are all dead, and kind of put them into a pile on top of each other, and then set them afire. And that way they don't have what we have, Victor had. Bring them back, and where are they going to bring them? All your helicopters and everything else is being used to combat these fires. So they stack them kind of in a pile. He notices that a few of them are pretty well burnt. Hair is missing. Just not a good scene. He's observing, like I said, some are burned, patches of, hair missing, because they were coming north when these fires just erupted. It's like a fucking wall of flames in the middle of Canada. There's patches of hair missing. Sure enough, they're riddled with bullet holes. They're all dragged over. He starts looking at a few of them, because he wants to kind of understand, what he just saw. He said, I know that we were doing good for our country, but he said, I kind of felt bad. He said, and a couple of the other guys did too, but it was either them or us. And this was truly, a super PAC. That last one that had gotten away apparently had managed to evade the drone in the sky, watching it. Somehow it just went into thicker woods and disappeared close to a river or a lake out there. And they are, one thing he remembers, and he doesn't know if there was any repercussions or backlash on this, was they were told by those two guys that if by chance they could have them flown back to the States, and in Virginia, where the naval base is over there, by the CIA farm. But instead, the call was made to essentially stack them up and set them afire. That's exactly what was done. 17 of them were set afire as these guys stood and, watched them. After that, they made sure that all the remains were then pushed together, burnt again, until it was just dust. And at that point, everything was done. They go back to, or they have to wait for a pickup. They had to hike south through this almost 4,000 foot mountain range. Luckily, it wasn't huge. They couldn't get any kind of transportation in from the north, so they had to clearly. Nothing was coming from the north, but what would happen is those pickups would have to kind of curve around. But then the fire had moved a little bit, and they get picked up. They're brought in a debriefing room. They all meet at the debriefing room. 3 of their guys were killed, and everything was, talked about that. They had brought up the fact that they were told one thing, and then, are we gonna get shit on because we did not bring them back here and save them for the Americans? That order had came down from the higher ups. That was not a on-scene call, so their asses were covered. The NDA that had been signed was now signed again. There was an additional sheet added with a notary, and all of them had won or received a Medal of Bravery for this incident, because they had put themselves in a very dangerous predicament, and the Canadian, government or military deemed it. You guys, 42 of you are here, and you guys went against these super apex predators that are responsible for multiple attacks and stuff, especially in Banff. I can't even count on one hand how many encounters that I've had in that area. Or not I've shared in that area. So, in the 3 fallen received military, their families were taken care of. So, but imagine a super PAC of Dogmen. I had heard about, there was one time supposedly a super PAC of wolves that ran through Russia, and I did an upload about this. This was 4 or 5 years ago, and a few of you will remember this. Jane Lindley will remember this. There was a super PAC of wolves running through this remote fishing village on the coast, and so this small Russian community off the coast of, I believe, Alaska, there was this huge 200 strong super PAC, maybe even more if I'm not mistaken, and along with that super PAC of wolves, and that was just all wolves, there was a large number of dogmen running through as well. And when that happened, there was villagers getting attacked in Siberia. I believe it was that. was like 2019 or 20 when there was one in Russia. 400. There was 400 of these things. 2016. That's when it was. 2016. A state of emergency was declared. So when that happened, there was small super packs of Dogman, supposedly, in this large number of wolves as well. That's not the one that I was thinking of. There was one more recently, and I want to say 2020, 2019, but maybe it was 2016, and I had just found it and read about it. Yeah, it was 2016. The winter of 2010, 2011, and then in 2016, killing numerous people. But there were, just so. Imagine how scary a super pack of Dogmen would be. And then on top of being apex, being completely, we are unmatched in strength to these things, but to have the intelligence that these things have as well is just out of this world. Anyway, with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.